Horror movies and soul-destroying endings go hand in hand. I mean, there's a reason we still bring up the likes of The Mist, The Thing, and funny games decades after they released. And that's because, in a way, audiences never got over the emotional gut punch that they all ended on. And it's likely they won't for the following movies either. I'm Josh from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 amazing horror movies with soul-destroying endings. Number 10. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. An adaptation of a Greek myth, The Killing of a Sacred Deer follows Colin Farrell's Stephen Murphy, a surgeon who contributed to the death of a young boy's father during an operation. While trying to atone for his mistakes, he's cursed by the boy with a sinister ultimatum. Stephen has to either kill a member of his family, his wife, son, or daughter, or watch as they all die a painful death via an unexplained illness. Unsurprisingly, Stephen isn't too fond of the idea of killing either his young kids or the woman he loves, and tries to find a way to break the curse. Eventually, though, it becomes apparent that that's not going to be an option, and in the final scenes, he's forced to make a decision. In a harrowing long take, Stephen ties his family up in the living room, rifle in hand. Unable to bring himself to decide who deserves to die, he spins around blindfolded and fires off shots wildly. After a few misfires, he finally hits a target, his young son, who dies on the couch. It's hugely uncomfortable to watch, and it's made even more soul-destroying in the final scene where Stephen's remaining family silently eats in a diner. Number 9. Dagon. It's important to note that Dagon, an adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, is a great movie, but part of that is definitely down to its B-movie charm. The acting is incredibly ropey, and it can sometimes look like a cheap made-for-TV movie, but director Stuart Gordon knows how to bring the scares when it counts, with some particularly inspired practical creature designs and one exceptionally brutal sequence of extreme gore. The ending, as well, doesn't skimp on delivering all-consuming cosmic horror. For the whole tale, we followed main character Paul as he's attempted to evade the fish monsters populating the titular town. Finally, he comes face to face, or I guess gill to gill, with the cause of the town's issues, the deity Dagon, an ageless monster living in a portal in the sea. Here, Paul's day just goes from bad to worse, and he finds himself not only confronted with horror that would make the average mind melt, but also hit with the revelation that he's actually one of these fish monsters himself, he just hasn't transformed yet. So yeah, that gill to gill bit wasn't just a great bit, it was a great bit of foreshadowing. See, I think ahead. Anyway, with no means of returning to his normal life, Paul then attempts to kill himself, but is foiled as he's pulled into the sea portal to spend the rest of eternity with his new family. Number 8. The Rental. If you're after non-stop action from your horror movies, then The Rental is probably not gonna be for you. The first half is essentially a straight-up mumblecore movie. Hell, it's even co-written by mumblecore maestro Joe Swanberg, and it's about a group of people on vacation. They have family drama, there's a love triangle in there, a character is stressed out about work, nothing you'd expect to lead to their grisly deaths. However, it's because the first half focuses so intimately on the character's own drama that the ending can be as impactful as it is. Halfway through, it's revealed that the house they're in has been bugged, and there's a masked killer in the shadows exploiting each character's fears before swooping in for the kill. After coldly murdering all of these people you become quite fond of, the unnamed killer then quietly packs up his surveillance gear and disappears without a trace. The very final scenes see him methodically repeating his actions in another rental home, with the implication being that he's been killing for a long time and will continue to do so unimpeded. Number 7. Kill List. The fact that you can probably guess where Kill List is going once it makes its shift into straight-up Wicker Man-style cult horror in its final act does little to detract from the gut punch of its ending. For the whole film, you followed two hard-lad hitmen offing a series of increasingly weird folk. By the end, one of them is dead and the other, Jay, is stripped of his clothes and forced to take part in a ritual sacrifice. Given a wicker mask and a knife, Jay comes face to face with the final name on his kill list, the Hunchback. With the rest of the cultists watching, the hitman stabs his victim to death, only to learn after the fact that, the Hunchback was actually his wife the whole time. Even worse, the Hunchback moniker came from Jay's son being strapped to his wife's back, creating the whole Hunchback visual in the first place. Now both are dead, and Jay collapses in horror at what he's just done. That reveal, combined with the demented cries of the cult at large, makes for one truly devastating ending. Number 6. Inside. There are a few things in horror that nobody really wants to see. Nobody wants to see the dog die, we hope babies will make it through to the end unscathed, and the same can be said for pregnant characters as well. Of course, filmmakers know this all too well, and have no qualms in crossing the line and smashing the protective barrier that we throw around certain characters. And that's exactly what happens in The Bloody Inside. After an intense game of cat and mouse, the villain of the piece catches up to Sarah, the expecting mother that she's been chasing. Both of them by this point are heavily injured, but just when you think Sarah might come out of this alive, she goes into labour. Now her tormentor can get what she really came for. Giving birth on the stairs of the house, the mysterious woman grabs a pair of scissors and cuts into Sarah's belly, creating an opening so that she can deliver the baby. Nothing here is left to the imagination in this sequence, and as the character that you've been rooting for bleeds out, you're left with the haunting image of her attacker cradling her newborn child on a rocking chair, both of them covered in gore. Number 5, I Saw the Devil. I Saw the Devil is perhaps the most difficult movie to watch on this list. That's partly down to the villain, Kyung-chul, a vicious serial killer and rapist who delights in murdering pretty much any woman he can get his hands on. The flick begins with him offing his latest victim, kicking off a game of cat and mouse between the vicious monster and that victim's fiancée, Kim So-yeon. The twist is, though, that So-yeon doesn't want his revenge to be quick. He wants to torment the killer and turn him from the predator into the prey. Consequently, after catching up with and attacking Kyung-chul, So-yeon doesn't take him to the police or even kill him personally. Instead, he places a tracker in the man's body and lets him go. The idea is that he'll keep showing up to punish the criminal until he's satisfied his own bloodlust. As you can probably imagine, this is one of the worst decisions any movie protagonist has ever made. It only results in more deaths and assaults. And when Kyung-chul figures out what's going on, he gets his own revenge by grisly killing So-yeon's sister and father. In like the 5th act of counter-revenge, the horror finally ends when So-yeon catches up with the killer and arranges for his beheading in front of his own family. In the final shot, we see So-yeon break down under the weight of the carnage that he's enabled. So yeah, everyone loses. Number 4, The Battery. Horror fans have been inundated with zombie movies, both low-budget efforts and blockbusters, but The Battery managed to make a name for itself when it dropped in 2012. It's a micro-budget horror about two former baseball players, Ben and Mickey, who are surviving together during the midst of a zombie apocalypse. There isn't much in the way of action set pieces or explosive moments of gore, and instead the terror comes from the claustrophobia of the pair's situation and the encroaching inevitability that they're probably not long for this world. All of this is summed up in the extended climax, where the pair are trapped in a car surrounded by the undead. With Ben too injured to make an escape and the keys outside, they're essentially at a stalemate. The zombies can't get in, but they also can't get out. After a bunch of days, a desperate Mickey tries to make a break for the keys, but is bitten on the way back to the car. With nothing else to do, Ben shoots his friend before attempting his own escape, limping away with a horde following behind him, and one bullet left to use on himself. Number 3, The Gift. It follows two men, the happily married Simon and an old school buddy of his named Gordo, who shows up to reconnect after decades of being estranged. Initially, Simon thinks Gordo is being an overbearing weirdo, as admittedly he does have a habit of showing up uninvited to the couple's house. It turns out that Simon has more reasons to distrust Gordo though, and that's because he actually bullied him while the pair were in school. And we're not talking swirlies and wedgies here. Simon convinced the school that Gordo had been molested, which only made the bullying even more relentless and caused his homophobic father to try and kill him. So yeah, Simon was a bit of a knobhead. Anyway, the ending sees Gordo execute his grand revenge plan. After disappearing off the face of the earth for months while Simon got back to normal with his wife Robin, who is now heavily pregnant, he sends his former tormentor one final gift. This is a videotape of Gordo approaching an unconscious Robin, with the implication being that he could have sexually assaulted her around the time the baby was conceived. While Simon is busy watching this as well, Gordo also tells Robin about Simon's past. Consequently, the lives of the pair are destroyed, and the audience and Simon are left wondering who the baby's father really is. Grim. Number 2, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The 1950s Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a great movie, but the producers at the time got cold feet and demanded it include some semblance of a happy ending. The 70s remake, however, encountered no such pressure, and in the process delivered one of the most chilling final scenes in horror history. A titan of the genre, you're probably already familiar with the premise. A group of characters realize the Earth's population is being assimilated and replaced by identical alien life forms affectionately known as the Pod People, who plan on taking over the planet without anyone noticing. Things look increasingly bleak for our heroes, and as they all slowly succumb to the duplication process, only Donald Sutherland's Matthew and Veronica Cartwright's Nancy remain human. They ultimately track down a plant where the alien duplication eggs are being sent out across America and destroy them before being separated. In the final scene, the movie cuts to the next day as Matthew walks amongst the Pod People who have barely been set back in their plant. It's left ambiguous, but it's strongly suggested that he's hiding in plain sight, pretending to be one of them. Finally, he bumps into Nancy, who asks how they're going to continue mounting a resistance, and in that moment he reveals himself as an alien duplication, letting out a chilling shriek. It's a truly deflating all is lost moment. Number 1. Eden Lake. There are loads of what culture horror staples that could have made it onto this list. I mentioned The Mist and The Thing in the introduction, but out of all of those, it's Eden Lake that remains the pinnacle of soul-destroying horror movies. A truly traumatizing flick about a couple on a romantic getaway tormented by bloodthirsty teenage thugs, Eden Lake has you rooting for the remaining survivor, Jenny. For 90 solid minutes, she's put through hell, only to finally kill one of the teens, take a car, and drive to safety in the nearest town. Or so she thinks. Crashing a party, she's taken in by the partygoers who promise to call the police, clean her up, and calm her down. However, it quickly becomes apparent that she's actually driven straight into the lion's den, or more specifically, the parents of the boy that she's just killed. Trapped in the bathroom of the house, both Jenny and the audience know the game is up, as the parents smash down the door, hurl obscenities, and in their violent rage hatch to kill her and cover up the actions of their murderous offspring. Seriously, there's downer endings, and then there's just Eden Lake.